her.
Good evening.
Not them. I see.
All set?
See,
I could have given you a minute, Brian, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
it's
cut you off.
okay, we're discussing our children and their great adventures.
I wasn't paying attention to you, I should have been, I would have
sorry.
given you a minute. Welcome to the September 12th Planning Board meeting. The first item on our agenda is the minutes from August 29th.
Mr. Chairman, I recommend approval of the minutes of August 29, 2017. That's correct.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Very good. The next item on the agenda is approval not required plans, or public comment, I always skip that, sorry. Does anyone have anything to say to the planning board that's not on our agenda tonight? Okay, thank you. We'll move on. Approval not required plans.
Not tonight.
There's none. We're moving right along. Applicant, I just butcher his name all the time. Bucciano, I'm very sorry. Special permit for contractor's yard located at lots 3A, 4, and 5, Heineken Way, Cape Cod and Islands Engineering. So this is a decision. We have a draft decision. Yes, Pat, if you would please.
I move that the planning board vote to approve the application of Joseph E. Bucciano for a contractor's yard under section 240-38K of the zoning bylaw for the storage of equipment and the parking of wheeled vehicles located at 356 Old Meeting House Road, East Falmouth, also shown on Assessor Map 21, Section 8, Parcel 18B, lots 003A, 004, and 005, as depicted on a plan entitled, in quotes, proposed contractor's yard, and in parens, formerly Heineken Way in East Falmouth, and quotes, drawn by Cape and Islands Engineering, dated May 19, 2017, scale 1 inch equals 40 feet pursuant to the following findings and conditions. Findings specific to section 240-38K of the zoning bylaw. 1, the locus resides in an agricultural AGA zoning district having 4.1 total acres, which satisfies the 3-acre minimum for this use. 2, the above reference plan shows a 300-foot front yard setback and the minimum 30 feet for the side and rear. The planning board finds these setbacks adequate to provide sufficient screening and buffer from the street or adjacent properties. 3, no contractor's yard shall be permitted in a water resource protection district and the locus is not within said resource district. 4, the area set aside for contractor's yard cannot be located within 300 feet of a single residence district, nor within 300 feet of a dwelling existing or for which construction had commenced as of April 1, 2000. The above reference plan shows compliance with these requirements. 5, no contractor's yard shall be permitted unless the planning board shall determine that operation of the contractor's yard, including traffic between the contractor's yard and arterial roadways such as Route 28 or Route 151, Thomas B. Landers Road, Sandwich Road, Old Barnstable Road, or Blacksmith Shop Road, will have no adverse impact on a neighborhood predominantly residential in character, and that the construction, width, and grades of the adjacent street and any other street providing access between the contractor's yard and any arterial roadway shall be sufficient for safe travel to and from the site by the vehicles to be stored. The planning board finds Old Meeting House Road fulfills these requirements and that the operation of the contractor's yard will not have an adverse impact on neighborhoods residential in character, given the conditions imposed below. 6, the planning board shall specify hours of operation, the type and number or amount of vehicles, equipment, or supplies to be stored, what fabrication of subassembly shall be allowed, if any, and what accessory activities such as ordinary maintenance and minor repairs shall be allowed. No activities such as major repair work, painting, or engine cleaning shall be allowed. The planning board will condition this special permit accordingly. Conditions. The planning board conditions the following operational limitations. 1, regular, and in parens, non-emergency, close parens. Hours of operation will be 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., Monday through Saturday for contractor's yard activities. 2, The type, number, or amount of vehicles, trailers, and equipment to be stored shall be limited to the schedule provided by the applicant in a letter dated June 28, 2017, from Amit Bauer LLP and attached hereto. Except for replacement in kind, no other vehicles or equipment shall be allowed without a modification of this decision. As no contractor supplies are listed in the above letter, none are approved. The plan is hereby amended to delete any reference to, in quotes, firewood stockpiling, close quotes, and any accessory structures associated therewith as shown thereon, as this represents a use allowed as a matter of right. The boundaries of the special permit area shall be limited to the paved area devoted to vehicle and equipment storage only, as depicted on the plan. 3. Other than the storage of the above referenced vehicles and equipment, no other activities in the special permit area are permitted, except minor repairs and maintenance may be performed. 4. All screening shown on the above referenced plan shall be kept in a healthy condition and not altered or removed without a modification of this decision. Special permit findings, section 240-216 of the zoning bylaw. Therefore, based on the above, the planning board determines the application to be in harmony with the general purpose and intent of this chapter. The board considers the site adequate and suitable in terms of size for the proposed use, impact on traffic flow and safety, and neighborhood visual character will be mitigated as per the findings and conditions above. Method of sewage disposal, source of water and drainage, utilities, and other public services are adequate or not applicable as per the application and plans. The application will not have an effect on the adequacy of the supply of affordable housing in the town. The decision of the planning board under Article 39, multiple review, is non-applicable.
Second?
Okay, discussion? Brian, I have a question. The plan references paved firewood storage. And wasn't that supposed to be removed?
It was.
Well, it's in your conditioned approval,
Okay, so that'll be changed.
correct?
Okay. I was just confused by that. Yes, go ahead.
Brian, we had talked at the last meeting about the school bus schedule that you were going to look into.
And I don't have that information for you,
Okay.
but it is a public way.
I was concerned about the hours of operation, when it would begin, and if there would be additional truck traffic that might have some adverse effect on children waiting on the road for the bus.
I don't have that information for you, so that's my fault.
Okay. The other two things we talked about was if there was storage of fertilizer, it would have, what?
There's no storage of fertilizer there.
Of
If there were,
fertilizer.
it would be associated with the use allowed as a matter of right. So you'll see in the decision, the only things to be stored are as listed in the letter dated, whatever that might be. But there were going to be fertilizer stores not pursuant to your special permit. It would be something that would be allowed as a matter of right.
Okay,
So we can't condition it.
okay, yeah,
That's
I got that.
That's the gist.
And the other was if there was, because under the type of maintenance, minor repairs and maintenance, my other concern was that if there was going to be any oil changed, it would have to be done on a non-permeable platform of concrete or something so that it wouldn't drain into the,
In the special permit area is an impervious surface. It's paved surface.
okay, covers my concerns.
Just an observation on the school buses, having moved around town and having kids go all the way through the system, the pattern changes every year. The routes change every year, so do the bus stops. It's not something that's consistent all the time. Sometimes the child moves into a new neighborhood, they create a bus stop, those kids move away, the bus goes, it's not like a set spot, here's a bus stop. It changes every year. It does.
No,
You're looking at me like you're strange, but that does.
No, I never experienced that. So, because there were always children, if one moved away, there were always other kids that would be waiting,
Right.
even if the schedule changed a little bit.
School buses start at 6 a.m. too. They start earlier than 7.
But they also stop along West Falmouth Highway, Route 28A, Route 28.
Main Street,
Main Street,
you know.
so there's a lot of other roads that they stop on.
This is a pretty quiet spot compared to other traffic areas.
Never mind, Brian, don't bother.
I apologize about that.
No, that's okay. Don't, just,
I actually forgot about it, too. Any others? John, you got anything down there? Can't see you. You okay?
All good.
Charlotte, okay? Call for a vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? All set? Thank you. Thank you very much. Good luck. Next decision, applicant Michael J. Conley, site plan review to construct an accessory apartment with a single-family dwelling to be constructed at 87 Gunning Point Road. Do you want to read this one?
Sure. Let me just make sure I got the right one here. September 1st, 2017 draft. Motion that the planning board vote to approve the application of Linda and Michael Conley for an accessory apartment under sections 240-23.1 and Article 49, site plan review of the zoning bylaw for a plan entitled Plot Plan, Proposed House, Lot 2, Gunning Point Avenue, Falmouth, Massachusetts, prepared by BSS Design, dated November 24th, 2017, revised July 14th, 2017, scale 1 inch equals 20 feet, together with architectural drawings entitled New House for Linda and Michael Conley, Lot Number 2, Gunning Point Ave, Falmouth, Mass., prepared by Thomas A. Moore Design Company, dated June 23rd, 2017, scale 1/4 inch equals 1 foot, 11 sheets, with the following findings and conditions. Findings pursuant to section 240-23, that's .I thought, I need to be corrected.
this was on scale of 1 foot equals
Oh,
20 feet.
what did I say, 1 inch?
Yeah.
Okay, so 2 corrections. Scale 1 inch is equal, 1 foot is equal to 20 feet in the motion. And in the findings pursuant to section 240-23I of the zoning bylaw. A, only the accessory apartment shall be allowed per lot in the above reference plans comply with this requirement. B, either the principal dwelling or accessory apartment must be owner-occupied for a period of 7 months in every calendar year, or owned by a nonprofit organization or government authority whose purpose is to provide affordable housing. Board will condition its decision accordingly. C, either the principal dwelling or accessory apartment may be rented, but not both during the 5 months the owner occupant may be absent. Rental period shall be no less than 6 months, and weekly, monthly rentals, summer rentals, so-called, are expressly prohibited. Neither the principal dwelling nor accessory apartment shall be used as commercial accommodations at any time. The board will condition its decision accordingly. D, the accessory apartment shall have no more than 2 bedrooms and a maximum of 800 square feet of floor area, or 40% of the floor area of the principal dwelling, whichever is less. The above reference plans comply with this requirement. E, the total number of bedrooms on the lot shall not exceed 4 when the lot contains less than 20,000 square feet. The lot contains 46,300 square feet of upland. Therefore, this requirement is not applicable. F, whether allowed as a matter of right or by special permit, accessory apartments located on lots subject to the provisions of the Water Resource Protection or Coastal Pond Overlay District, the total number of bedrooms shall not exceed 1 per 10,000 square feet of lot area, unless both the principal dwelling and accessory apartment are connected to the municipal sewer system or to an on-site septic system with enhanced nitrogen removal approved by the Board of Health. The lot is not subject to the provisions of the Water Resource Protection District or Coastal Pond Overlay District. The applicant has indicated the intention to install a septic system with enhanced nitrogen removal, but this is not a requirement of this decision. G, the board finds the architectural effect as a result of the accessory apartment being constructed within the principal dwelling is that of a single-family residence compatible with the surrounding neighborhood. Parking for the accessory apartment is provided in a manner that is compatible with the surrounding neighborhood. Conditions. 1, the plan shall be constructed as approved. Any changes shall be reviewed by the planning board to determine if a modification of this decision is necessary pursuant to section 240 183B of the zoning bylaw. No permit for full or partial occupancy shall be issued until the planning board is satisfied that the conditions of this approval and predecessor approvals have been met. 2, either the principal dwelling or accessory apartment must be owner-occupied for a period of 7 months in every calendar year or owned by a nonprofit organization or government authority whose purpose is to provide affordable housing. An affidavit shall be submitted annually to the building commissioner, signed by the property owner, attesting that the principal dwelling or accessory apartment has been owner-occupied for a period of 7 months and not otherwise rented as set forth above. 3, either the principal dwelling or accessory apartment may be rented, but not both during the 5 months the owner-occupant may be absent. Rental period shall be no less than 6 months, and weekly, monthly rental, summer rental, so-called, are expressly prohibited. Neither the principal dwelling nor accessory apartment shall be used as commercial accommodations at any time.
Second.
Any discussion?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Brian, item F says that the applicant has an indicated intention to install a septic system and enhance nitrogen removal, but this is not a requirement, it's decision. Can he now change his mind if he wants to move forward? So that's not a requirement, so if he doesn't want to do it, he doesn't have to do it.
Do it.
Thank you.
Subject to the Board of Health, so.
Big lot, don't think it's required. That's all right.
Not in the district.
And it's right on the ocean, so there's no coastal pond to be affected.
Right, you're not in that overlay district.
Yeah.
So it'd be like you're not in a business zone.
Doesn't count.
It doesn't count.
Anybody else? We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. All set?
First accessory apartment.
Very first one.
He'll be out of here soon.
Okay.
We're going to take over the rest of the year.
No side discussions here. Planning board discussion decision. And this is for Chappie LLC, which I have already recused myself from in a prior meeting, so I will leave and not participate. I'll be back when you finish. Pat?
Okay, so Bob, you want to read this?
Sure.
Are you getting hoarse? Yeah.
Oh, no, not yet. Just gotta check, make sure all the Roman numerals have regular numbers next to them. Okay, we ready? Okay, September 8th, 2017 draft, motion that the planning board vote to approve the application of Chappie LLC under Article 39, site plan review of the zoning bylaw for a plan entitled Layout Plan for 100 Dillingham Avenue, prepared for Chappie LLC in Falmouth, prepared by Falmouth Engineering, dated July 6, 2017, revised August 29, 2017, scale 1 inch equals 20 feet. See, I was right on the other one. It was, yeah. 6 sheets, together with architectural plans entitled Nimrod Renovation and Addition, 100 Dillingham Ave, Falmouth, Mass. Exterior elevation sheets A2, 1 and A22, prepared by Salt and Stall Architects, dated July 24th, 2017. Scale is noted with the following findings and conditions. Findings. The application under the site plan review seeks to construct an addition to and renovate the existing Nimrod building together with a new structure to accommodate 7 residential dwelling units and 9,896 square feet of commercial space, together with the attendant drainage, lighting, parking, and landscaping. The plans have been referred to town agencies and amended accordingly to the comments received by the Engineering Division, Fire and Rescue Department, and Water and Utilities Department. Parking has been provided for the residential units and the commercial office space. However, a special permit is required from the Board of Appeals to maintain the non-conforming nature of the parking field. Spaces 52 and 53 are landscape spaces in order to preserve the significant beech trees in the vicinity. The board finds this acceptable as conditioned below. The planning board finds the architectural elevation and landscaping appropriate for this area setting. Regards the overall site plan, the applicant's attention is directed to the Water Department's referral dated August 31st, 2017. The applicant will need to prepare a plan that conforms to Water Department standards and submit separately to the Water Department for review and approval. Otherwise, except as conditioned below, the board finds the overall site planning acceptable. Conditions. 1. The plan shall be constructed as approved. Any changes shall be reviewed by the planning board to determine if a modification of this decision is necessary pursuant to section 140-180-183B of the zoning bylaw. No permit for full or partial occupancy shall be issued until the planning board is satisfied that the conditions of this approval and predecessor approvals have been met. 2, a hydrant shall be installed as per the Fire and Rescue Department referral dated August 8, 2017, under the direction of the Water Department. 3, the applicant shall prepare a water line extension plan that conforms to Water Department standards and submit separately to the Water Department for review and approval. 4, the construction of spaces 52 and 53 will require review by this board as a modification of this decision in order to protect the existing 38-inch beech tree. That's it.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion?
I just have a question. Those beech trees, are they the very large beech trees? Are there some, are those the two we're talking about?
The plan shows a
One in the back?
38-inch.
Yeah, they're huge. Okay. Thank you.
Anybody? Any other comments, questions? No.
Point of information?
No, this is purely, it was closed previously. So, yeah, John.
The only question that I have is, excuse me, during the presentation regarding parking, the applicant indicated that the first floor space is designed for office space regarding the parking, and that there may be some of these spaces actually rented for retail, which would require additional parking. I know they've got 6 spaces that they're not going to pave over, but is there some way we should address it in the decision, or? And I know the parking always works out, but it's the Board of Appeals that's going to make the decision on this, so I don't know if we should make if it's customary to make some kind of a adjustment on the parking, or put it as part of the decision that they may need more parking, or?
You're voicing my concerns as well, and much better than I would have stated it, John. Thanks.
It's not a lot more spaces, but it's a few more.
Well, it would be up to the Board of Appeals. A special permit conditions the use. The site plan depicts enough spaces for a commercial office space, or some combination thereof. Once you exceed it, then you're going to have to provide it in some other manner. But the restriction as to the use is something that the Board of Appeals will address.
Okay. Thanks, Brian. Anybody else? John, you had?
I just know that, we send them a referral, and I didn't know if we should address that in the referral, that they may need additional spaces, 2 or 3 more spaces in the
That would be
future.
the more appropriate, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, it has been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Good. 1 abstention.
You can have your plan back.
I'm not a good bet. I think it's a good plan.
Committee reports.
Thank you, Jim, for putting that on the agenda.
This one got bounced around a little bit.
Our committee met, and therefore we have a report to make. Pam and I are the little subcommittee for multifamily housing, and our first step, of course, was to meet with Brian to hear what prior work had been done and what his recommendations might be and what his line of thought would be on 2 things. One, on multifamily housing on the subject, and on the process for arriving at some kind of recommendation for this board. And it was a good discussion. The long and short of it, by the end of the meeting, going back and forth, was that we could tie this to the Davis Straits plan, and maybe put some wind in those sails as well, because the Davis Strait plan calls for multifamily housing right there. And of course, it doesn't specify any further than a certain size block at a certain point, but it's definitely there. So we thought, let's us work toward finding a way, what would the regulations and rules look like to enable that plan?
if that were to come to be a reality, what would the zoning requirements look like for that? And to begin there, not to end there, but begin there, and ask the planning department in their spare time to draft some, what they think would be the enabling bylaws for us to take a look at. I looked at any rate, and I think Pam has also, looked at the Cape Cod Commission report. Our attention was directed to it, so we went to it. And all that they're saying of any quantitative nature is that it would be 12 units rather than 6 units. But, that's just a starting point. That's what they have to say. I'd be very interested in knowing what the guidelines were for the housing that was put in collaboration with the Public Housing Authority down there on Scranton Avenue. What enabled those? Because the key issues are the bulk and the density. And what rules did they use, or what thoughts did they have as they were designing the buildings that were eventually put in there? So that's as far as we've gotten, but it seemed to us, particularly after our poorly attended stakeholders meeting, the one person's comment that we would get a lot more rise out of the public if we had an executable plan. We're a long way from an executable plan, but we could make a beginning on it by trying to nail down the multi-family housing bylaws and see what they'd look like. It'd just be a place to start.
Clearly this is a 50-year plan, and we don't clearly want to wait 50 years or 25 years or 10 years to sort of begin this process, because the need for multifamily housing is here now. And so this was our first stab at it, and we're not going to stop just at this particular location. I think, we can look at other areas as well, but this just seems like a perfect area when we talk about pushing the, if some of these malls go out of business, which they may well do, how do we then jump on the opportunity to have housing there as well as businesses, mixed use?
We had a discussion a few years ago. Brian produced a study that showed density around town, and for that might, but I don't know if we have to revisit that. I remember it, and for the newer members, you don't have to see it, but we're talking a number here, 12, right? That's what we're
that's
zeroing
what the
in on a
Cape Cod
number
Commission
for
has,
greater
yeah.
density, and this would be some kind of overlay district.
Or some mechanism, doesn't have to.
So we could choose where we assign it. It won't happen everywhere.
Correct.
We would have to choose where it goes. Mike, I'd like to have a discussion whether you think 12 is enough, because there's only one way to get affordable housing, and that's build it where the main roads and the sewer systems are. And certainly we don't want to, have, but I'd like to, what's the right number? I think that's the all-important density question here, right? Is that?
Well, and 12 I was surprised that that's what they had to say. Bob and I are very new to it, but it did seem like a low number in order to produce the scale of housing that might be needed to address keeping young people in town, workforce housing, the kinds of things that you're trying to look at when you're looking at multifamily housing.
It's actually doubling our limit now, right? Because we're at 6.
It is, but 6 except for special permits, and they've obviously been special permits. So we have other things in town that are higher.
Well, I think the ones you're referring to didn't get permits with their town built.
They're
So
town,
yeah,
but
so
they must have had thoughts in mind when they picked the density.
Well, many are Chapter 40B.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what's the density down there?
Well, Oddfellows Hall is 32 units an acre.
32?
Yeah.
So,
And that's
yeah,
that's a big building with only 4 units, and if you walk into it, it doesn't,
Okay, well, what's 70, is it 704 or 705?
704. I think there's 58 units. I forget the acreage. I think it's like 10 or 12.
Okay, so that gives us a picture.
I can look
And
that
at
up.
the other end of the picture of what would be grotesquely huge, Liberty Green would be what?
Oh, that's like 45 units an acre. I forget now. But I think one of the discussions the board had, and we'll revisit this, it's all sitting in the corner of the office somewhere, so pull it back out again as we are approaching that, the right timing, as we say, is we were trying to get away from a number of units. We just want to say, okay, in this building, on this lot, your floor area ratio is 10,000 square feet. You want to have 20 units of whatever it might be, or 10 units, whatever it might be. And you sort of get away from that. And the example is Oddfellows. Those are micro units. It's 4 units an acre, but it's really not a good litmus. It's not a good metric of use. It's square footage. It's more better use. And if it's a 1-bedroom or a 2-bedroom, you eat up the square footage more than anything else.
And because people's styles are changing on the size of their units too, that changes all the time. To keep our zoning up to date with it, it'd be hard.
So would that be an aspect of form-based zoning, to switch to square footage rather than density?
Square footage, and you tie it to an architectural effect. So you can have twice as much square footage if you use this or an architectural effect. If not, then you have to use another process, or your density, your square footage may be lower. So you incentivize it. It's called incentive zoning. Same thing we do on Main Street. We incentivize mixed use. You can do it by right. You can have 6 units, and you can have commercial space, and this comes to the planning board for a plan review. Same concept is here. You have so much square footage. If you tie it to an architectural style, then you can have twice as much. Right.
Would then, if the board liked the idea of having some drafts to look at, would those lots appear in the drafts?
Yeah, we have, those concepts are, I didn't make those up. I have to never reinvent the wheel. So I can get you some examples of what other people do, and see how it might work on certain areas of the Davis Straits.
And we're talking, these are areas that are sewered areas we're talking about. So people don't go crazy, we're not going to be building these next to our coastal ponds.
Everyone understands that, we have to have the infrastructure, you have to have the sidewalks, you have to have the streets, you have to have traffic signals, you have to have the sewers.
Transportation.
And the transportation to accommodate the increased number of people who will be living there. So everybody, I think the planning board, get that. This is not going to happen up on, Hatchville Road for a while.
The nice thing about the Davis Straits area is you can create, an actual living space for people where they live, they work, they don't have to drive miles and miles to get from point A to point B. And I don't want to get caught up on how many units, because I think it depends on what opens up and what's going to be available for building. Whether we have 4, subsets of 15 units each, or with mixed, studios, 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, to accommodate families, maybe 3-bedroom. I mean, there are a lot of millennials today that don't want to buy real estate. What they want is just to rent. And it's actually a little surprising that there are a number of people our age who have decided when they sell their home they've had for many years, they're going to rent. They don't want to buy again. So I think we have an opportunity to accommodate multi-generational uses in areas that are walkable, have transportation, mixed-use areas. And I think we have the opportunity here with this new plan, with the Davis Straits plan, to move ahead with that.
And I think that real estate investors who would invest money, like the mixed use and like apartments buildings sell for pretty good dollars because there's so much demand for places to live that they stay full, and the landlord likes to have people in paying rent, and that makes everything work. Right. So I think if we were to create this district, it would actually be well received by investors, and something could actually, we're talking about doing this with private money. This isn't a public trying to think. We actually want to make something that's attractive enough that investors could step in, and I think it would.
But affordable enough.
Well, we can do that by size, and we might actually have a benefit if they put a couple more that we could add affordable.
Increased density for
Yes.
affordable housing.
Maybe we could talk about whether that goes to 15 or some other number. If it does that, we can talk about all that.
And we've talked about our own friendly 40Bs, creating these situations that the market would would help to create, so.
Well, one of the advantages of going the way that Brian's talking about in the incentivized zoning plan, where it's square footage rather than density, the investors decide.
Yeah.
So that they have a mix of sizes within the same development to attract a broader swath of people, more likely to keep it full. It's a much more flexible thing for the investors and for the owners.
And that's part of our land use plan too, is, you know,
Yeah.
building housing for everybody, you know. I think
Right.
that would work out.
I think the other thing, at least, that was appealing to us as we were talking about it in Brian's office and tying it to the Davis Strait plan, is that it seems like a very orderly way to go forward. We've got this plan that we're looking at, we're trying to attract attention to it so that people will see a vision of what it could look like and maybe get behind it and help us out on it, because it's got a lot of areas there that are going to take something a little stronger than private investment, that there might be eminent domain involved in part of it, particularly where it will have to be thinking about where the coastal resiliency people are going to want to have ways for the water to come back in and out. There's very intensive development on top of that right this minute.
Right, absolutely.
So we've got some tough things ahead, and it might be better for us to focus our attention right in that area now for the multifamily housing and get some thoughts out in the public about what that would look like in that area where it's already accepted that it's multi-use.
I think we actually have to talk about transfer of development rights at the same time where we talk about that. Because some of these people have very valuable assets that, and one of the ways we could do it is, we could actually go to these buildings and say, we could buy them and let the existing landlord keep them for 15 or 20 years, so that they can make,
Yeah.
we could give them some cash so they can make some money, but after their 20 years are up, then the town, then they could fit into our plan as we move down the road. So there's all kinds of different vehicles other than eminent domain. We might be able to negotiate with some of these folks, because we could go to them and let them keep the income for 20 years and pay them for the building, so that's a real incentive. And then we would have time to make plans to tear them down at the end of that period.
That's quacking like a redevelopment authority, not a planning board. But
Oh, well,
I agree with you.
I'm afraid I have a little of that in me.
I also don't want to rule out public-private partnerships with some of the building, because I think that public-private partnerships can go far.
That sounds like what Jim just proposed.
Oh, well, they're all things to talk about. right?
Did you say that?
No, I talked about, it would have been a partnership, yes. It would have been, in essence, it would have been, yes, because if we buy the building and let them keep it, let the private entity keep it for 20 years, that's a partnership. That is what it would be like.
Right, but it's still held privately.
No,
I'm
the
saying,
title would be in the town.
okay.
It would be a public, it would be a
Public.
development that way. I didn't use that terminology, but it would have the same effect.
Well, Jim, then do you feel ready to take that step to ask them to give us some draft regulations? What would it look like to make that portion of the
Well, I
Davis
think
Strait
you have just
plan-
asked that. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, we just,
I believe that's just what
we asked for that.
I believe that's what you
thank you.
just said.
Right,
And
and we'll take it off the shelf and try it.
And I think it'll actually kickstart, I think the next time we have that as an overlay district and it's sent out to the abutters, or they'll actually show up.
It could be.
Maybe we weren't serious enough in our presentation before, and this would,
We've actually had someone call the office and ask for the link to the FCTV, property owner who just got back.
oh, good.
Oh,
Right, so, you know, it's a tough time of year.
Yeah, it's true, it was, you know,
So
summer
don't
vacation.
beat yourselves up, that, you know, now that the kids are back in school and busy seasons are starting to ebb a little bit, you get some attention. We got attention on all the other initiatives.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of timing. So we'll dust off some things, we'll revisit some of the issues. It's multifaceted. I'm glad the board has this discussion. I always have to rein you in. I don't have to push you out there. But to do many of the things you want to do, you're going to have the administrative capacity here in town. And that's something that perhaps you can start talking with the Board of Selectmen about. If you want a redevelopment authority, you want economic development, you want affordable housing, you need to have the administrative capability to get it done. So it all ties together. You can do your part, roles and responsibilities, remember? The draft, the plan, and some land use regulations, and then how do you get there? Right. And then one of the things,
No, Brian, I did
seriously
not
start thinking
mean that the
about-
planning board would be
yeah.
buying these buildings and renting them back to landowners. I thought of another entity in town doing that. I didn't think that is our job.
Not your job. Not-
I know that.
Roles and responsibilities.
Yes. I was thinking more broadly.
But it's a good start, and I think we're probably obviously looking at the intersections. To start, I think that was in the commission report. The areas around Rose Street, that area around Springboro Road, largest single-family homes today, and for mapping purposes. But one of the things I'll pull out again, and the drafts that we did, is the purpose.
Yep.
So start thinking about why we're doing this. We want to see what happened. Why are we doing this? I'll draft something up, but that's Brian Curry, listening to you. As this evolves, think about, why are we doing this? What do we want to achieve? Put that into the purpose section, because that's the section that drives everything else. Amen, Brian.
Brian, if you wouldn't mind, just a little bit more. Could you expand on your thoughts on administrative capacity?
Well, if you're going to have if you're going to redevelop, that's what we're doing here.
Yep.
The days of site plan reviews and special permits on vacant land that are pretty much done. This is all redevelopment. And many communities have found that the administrative capacity to get that done in a most efficient manner, because you're a regulatory board. You can't be going out there calling folks up and saying, how would you like to buy your building? That's another function of government, because you issue permits. It would be a conflict. So economic development, housing, those sort of community development functions typically reside elsewhere. You draw the blueprints, you make the plans, you focus yourselves on the regulatory environment to get it done, and then others pick up the cudgels and move forward. So that's the type of things you need to think about. If in fact you want these plans to get implemented, then you're going to have implementers. I've said it many times before. There are regulators, there are planners, regulators, and implementers. It's like a triad. You are the planners, zoning board's a regulator, community preservation committee is an implementer. And you work together. And that's how it gets done. But you have to have certain other functionalities once you get into redevelopment. In
Go ahead,
loans
Pat.
and the whole bit.
We've talked about redevelopment authorities before. And we have the EDIC as an economic development group now.
You have their
Wait.
study, the joint study with Mashpee.
Are there other entities besides something like an EDIC or redevelopment authority elsewhere that might be the implementer? Is there another entity called differently?
There are community development corporations. Boston uses them a lot. They're called 121A corporations. They're very specific sometimes to neighborhoods. We study them in graduate school.
Sometimes they're one building.
One building, Prudential Center. So there are other mechanisms, but a town of this size and capacity, you're probably looking at another elected board that has certain powers and a staff to staff it.
I ran a 121A project for 25 years.
Very good.
One Beacon Street.
Nice.
It was a 1 million square foot office tower, and its incentive was that they did not pay taxes on vacant space. They only paid taxes on occupied space.
Really?
So it made it so when they had vacancy, it was a real financial incentive. And it lasted for 40 years. And it got a building built where it really was a great incentive. And it was very interesting to run because you didn't have to worry about paying taxes on vacant space. It made life a lot easier.
Right, so there's the 121A corporations, Chapter 121B corporation is a redevelopment authority, and Chapter 121C corporation is an EDIC. And you can have various community development corporations that may have a very specialized function. But let's start with the general statutes first and go from there.
A lot of numbers there.
Yeah, well, it's all, I've worked I've worked with all three types of entities. They all have their ups and downs and goods and bads, but most folks, as a community this size, you're probably looking at a small CDC or a redevelopment authority. But that's an implementer. Right now, you're finishing up your planning, you're getting into some of the regulatory worlds, and then you need somebody to be able to actually.
But you mentioned that the CPC is an implementer, right? Didn't-
Well, again, we go to them for money.
When I talk with them, though, because I've had conversations with them about a parcel of land that I don't know where I'll be talking about that later. But they say they don't do anything. They want the applicants to come forward. They said, I need to find someone to be an
They're
applicant.
not regulatory.
Okay,
They're not they use your plans.
right.
They have a bank, they have funds to implement some of the things that we talk about, whether it's the bike path, or recreation, it's open space acquisitions,
Cultural.
cultural things that we can get done. That's an example of someone who may implement your plans. There's no economic development function really with CPC, that would have to be someone else. We'd say,
But the 300 committee, as far as open space, would be an implementer, so they could acquire
right.
parcels
And we do-
in this Davis Straits area. They could actually be the one to acquire them. They could go to the CPC and ask for funds,
That's what you're
and
doing with the-
eventually to either create open space now or open space in the future, so that would,
Right. So your plan calls for open space in certain areas.
Right.
One way to implement that is always, find a community development corporation or a not-for-profit who does the legwork, and it's been done literally dozens of times here in town for open space. Now, you're sort of shifting focus to other important community development functions when it comes to housing and jobs creation, tax rateables, things of that nature. Redevelopment. But and you have the studies, you have a lot of information already, just sometimes, it's never a linear progress, it's always stepwise, we move on something, then we move to something else, and stepwise progression. Right now, we're stepping up another step.
any other committee reports?
Okay, can I
Committee
ask-
report just to
add
the-
to this?
No,
Before
we
you
can keep
change?
going, sorry, Paul, thought we were
I
finished.
was just trying to think out of the box a little bit. Charlotte mentioned Scranton Ave. If I understand correctly, some of the housing down there is federal and state housing. Is that correct? But whoever owns it,
It's owned by the.
some of that's been there a long, long time. And it may be appropriate to consider redeveloping that area through federal or state sources. Perhaps a two-story building. It's a valuable piece of property. I'm not trying to concentrate a lot more people in that area, but it's an open space. It's been used for that for a long time, but it may be an opportunity for the committee at least to look into, is there an opportunity to upgrade the houses there at the same time, increase the density slightly?
Isn't this the very intersection that Brian's talking about, where we've wandered into redevelopment? Would really need to be acting not as a planning board, but as individuals, finding
Well, we
others
can
that
look
would
at the
bring
options
it
of
forward.
it.
Sure,
Yeah.
yeah.
Just throwing out the concept.
Sure, that's another redevelopment. The Salt Sea Apartments have been there since World War II, I think. They may be ready, they're on the sewer now, I believe. They may be ready for a redevelopment scenario, perhaps
Right.
through the housing authority, another authority that has the ability to implement things. But as part of your planning, part of your
It has more
regulatory
than-
environment, because they are subject to local regulations.
Well-
It would be something to think about. But we're, right now, our task is at least focusing on Davis Straits.
As a planning department, aside from planning board, as a planning department, do you, or have you worked in collaboration with the housing authority at any point in the past?
Not really.
No. Is it something that you can do?
Well, yeah,
Because it's a
I've known,
capacity
well,
the town
let's put it this
already
way.
has.
I'll take a step back. The authority itself runs its buildings and its properties under the state statute there. They have a corporation. The Falmouth Housing Corporation was really the offspring of the authority. And we've worked all the time with them.
Mhm.
Right. We don't get into the everyday workings of the authority. But the Falmouth Housing Corporation was put together by Bob Murray. They worked at the authority with others to sort of be a little bit more flexible with prevailing wages, bidding requirements and whatnot, to be able to build affordable housing. Very expensive to begin with. If you have to pay the prevailing wage, it's very difficult. But yes, we deal with their corporations.
So that might be a way to approach this thing Paul's talking about.
And that's what we say. You usually have some sort of CDC or not-for-profit to implement your plan.
Could we ask, I think it's in the report, but if they called out for us a particular section that could bring you the attention to what a 12-unit density would look like in a mixed use for a block?
Oh, you mean like elevations and things?
Yeah.
Because they've got on the plan, areas planned out where they would go.
Right, but
And sort of you can see the scale of them.
They had different types of building in the report, but I don't think they identified this one has so many units per acre.
No,
No.
didn't.
They didn't get to that level of detail.
But we're talking about doing square footage anyway and not units, so it might be my point.
Units
off
is
target.
a poor
Sorry.
metric.
Here, we could just hand this down one. Right now, they're up here, but they could be anywhere, obviously, but those are the labels.
Right, I was thinking more of an elevation type.
Yeah.
I'm very familiar with the plan layout.
Yeah.
I wanted to see what they'd look like.
Right.
Well, again, the architectural effect.
Right,
Something
yeah.
you can discuss. You did a very good job with some commercial buildings. Just a nice example here with the Nimrod. But it's all sort of not well laid out. And you sometimes need to rely on the goodwill of the applicant. Whereas I think if you're going to allow 36 units an acre or whatever it might be, you expect something in return. Yeah, we were getting the housing, but we want it to look a certain way. Right, so you might have a little bit more site plan review authority that you must adopt a certain.
So put some teeth into site plan review.
Obviously, it's more expensive, it's higher maintenance and whatnot, but you're getting that huge density.
Quality build out, yeah.
Right, to absorb that extra cost, we get it.
So what's our next step here?
Well, I'm going to go back and we can revisit this probably in a couple of weeks. Unfortunately, September and October is your busy regulatory time. You're going to have zoning articles, you're going to have a remand, you're going to have all sorts of stuff going on next few weeks, but I'll stick it into the next few meetings. At least if we refresh your memory as to the density throughout town, what we were talking about, show some areas, get you some examples, get that conversation started. Your homework is to think about purpose. Why are we doing this? That's the first question we always answer to the town meeting. Why are we doing this? What's different? How does it work?
Yes, Bob.
I recently viewed a program on PBS that the board might be interested in. It's called 10 Neighborhoods That Changed America. And you can probably find it online, but it goes through all these things that were good and bad about things that happened in development in this country. So I thought it'd be something that you should be aware of.
We'll see. There won't be a meeting next week, but I'll plug it into the next 3 or 4 meetings of the board.
Thank you.
Jim, can I ask you a question? Are there any bids in or around Falmouth?
I don't think so.
Main Street had one for a while, Business Improvement District. We were talking about them for a while, back in the 90s, diffs and bids.
That's usually brought up by a group of property owners, not, it's really bottom up, not top down. Like a Falmouth Village Association could want to do it, make a business improvement. That would be probably the first place where one could be, because there's a lot of business right here. And I belong to it. They're a very active group, but they haven't pushed for anything like that yet. But they are very active as a lot of them. They're a very, very strong group, and they meet regularly.
Okay.
So I have stuff, but I'll bring it up, and then I'm going to wait till it happens. talk about it. Don't want to talk about anything that hasn't happened yet. On the committee reports, general correspondence, is there any at all? I haven't seen that in a while.
Well, the only correspondence I would like to point to the board is this email correspondence from the selectmen.
Yep.
I put it in your package. You can start thinking about things you want to talk about at the joint meeting. I know you want to talk about personnel and staffing issues prior to that meeting. I'm going to put that in too. Don't worry, Sean. But anything else that's coming up that you would like to discuss, just email them over to Melinda. She'll compile them, and Jim and I can be talking with Sue and with Julia to narrow it down to, an hour each, 4 topics usually, or 45 minutes each. Think about next steps, because we have had many of these meetings. Think about what we talked about in other meetings, and how we might advance to some more next steps.
What about having the residential density discussion at the meeting? Talking,
Write it down. And
yeah,
we'll-
I think we should just put it right on it.
Well, do you want to talk about it as density, or as a time for, at least for this area that we're now going to focus on, for changing to form-based zoning?
It might
It
be
seems
in the-
like a great way to introduce this. Everybody sort of knows about it, but we haven't had an open discussion about it. So it would be the beginning of letting the public know, and it wouldn't be so much density
Right.
then. Right,
Gets to the same point.
it does,
Yeah.
right.
So it could be just a brief update of the Data Straits initiatives. Because we won't have a lot of concrete
No.
answers by October 14th.
No, but we could also reach out to the Cape Cod Commission for just a little bit of language for proposing, discussions on it, or yourself as well. I mean, I just,
It's fine. I reach out to them.
no, I mean,
It's $460,000
because
a year.
they have kind of pointed in this direction. We're kind of, yeah, I'd like to have it on the agenda. That'd be the recommendation. I think we can't get much done until we change those, so.
Well, you'll vote the agenda items at a meeting, probably the 3rd.
Okay.
Right, but we certainly would want to do the administrative capacity / personnel staffing issue, because that's going to come right up and stare at us, so.
Okay.
So we just need your thoughts at this point. Nothing's written down. We're going to have health, zoning's going to be there. So it's going to be a fairly big.
Yeah. So, and will this be the opportunity? Are we going to have a meeting just with us and the Board of Health, or is this our opportunity to
We're working on that.
talk? Because there's issues with their interpretation.
We're working on that.
Okay, so it doesn't have to be here, okay. That's what I needed your guidance on, thank
We're
you.
working on it.
Just, I'm a beginner and I don't know
Okay.
how this meeting fits in with the town's budgeting process.
It does not. This is, the charter requires that the planning board and the selectmen meet twice a year to discuss, planning initiatives. But the budgeting is the domain of the finance committee and the board of selectmen. You are certainly within your rights as an elected board to say that, we're going to need resources to implement the plans that we put forward that have been voted by town meeting. You need to think about that you're precluded from a discussion, but ultimately those decisions are made by others.
We can make recommendations, or at
Yes.
least express a need, because I hear
Yes.
capacity,
Right.
and that translates into budget.
Right, and how that budget translates is not the board's purview, but it would be, we need to be able to implement this plan, and if we need to be able to do this and that. We leave it to the personnel folks and the manager types to come up with a budget. And the selectmen would vote to charge them to do that, just like you charged me with this.
Yeah.
I don't.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
Brian, is this discussion on potential adaptive reuse have anything to do with the selectmen's desire to have that land use department, or whatever they want to call it, community development?
No, I believe they received a memorandum from a private citizen, also serves on the planning board, about the issue, and they thought it was well-written, and they put it on the agenda.
Can I add to that? About 8 months ago, I wrote a memo about adaptive reuse of town buildings. And I used an example, perhaps wasn't the best example. It came up during our joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen, and Ms. Moran said she hadn't seen it, so I gave it to Julia, and he circulated it, and I think that's where it comes from. The issue really, I think it's probably a good idea, but it'd be nice to have a list of properties that the town owns before that meeting to find out what we're talking about. I think it's extensive, but I don't really know. So I send it as a private citizen, town meeting member, not as a member of the planning board. So I'm very happy to see it's on there, but the concern I have with this is, I look at 6 boards, about 40 people.
Yeah.
Right.
And, you know, our experience with that is we really don't get into a lot of depth when we deal with these issues. So, you know, to have accessory apartment bylaw, that passed already. So I'm not quite sure why that would be on the agenda since it was approved by town meeting. And these boards are going to get into it all over again?
And it may not be. And it may be that if there's a topic on there that implicates the Board of Health, they should be there, or if it implicates another board, they should be there, just like we did last time. But the main focus is between the Board of Selectmen.
So we will be finalizing this discussion, did you say October 3rd?
Right.
So
That'll be time to get it posted.
So thoughts and recommendations, send them in.
Right.
You know, if you have any extra, think about
And
this.
you will discuss it
I know, yeah.
at your October 3rd meeting.
Yeah.
Brian, that kind of answered my question, because I was looking 6 boards, okay.
If in fact you're going to talk about resources and personnel that implicates all those other boards, then they should be there, at least in the audience to listen, or be invited. They may not be there to participate, but they could be there as a resource. It may be that, you know, the discussion doesn't revolve around last town meeting's attempt at community development issues. Could be something different.
So the vision is that this is the Board of Selectmen and the Planning Board, and the others are ancillary in there.
If there's a topic that we want to talk about, the accessory apartment bylaw, how's it going? You may want to have those other regulatory boards that have a role. If we're not going to talk about them, then that would fall. So you're right, 40 people speaking 5 minutes each. Yeah.
Well, we'll see who shows up, too. Saturday morning, they may not come.
You
We
never
had
know.
quite a lot
Yep.
the last time when we had this joint meeting.
Well, I'm wondering whether you could do something a little different, rather than have 40 people there, have representatives from some of the committees who are not principally involved in this. If this is a planning board, board of selectmen meeting, the full boards have to be there, but maybe just representatives from the Board of Health and ZBA
That's-
and others
Right.
would make it a little more manageable. With 40 people, it's impossible to have any kind of
Agreed,
meeting.
agreed. We've done that in the past. Right.
That's a good idea.
Sometimes, I'm sorry.
I just said, good idea. Go ahead.
Sometimes having the chairman and the vice chair of the other boards, rather than having an 8-member board come, also works quite well. More of a leadership group than a,
Yep, agreed.
Okay.
So get that to us, and I'll put it on the 10th agenda.
So are we on to next meeting already?
So
Your
you drag
next
this
meeting
out
will
to
be
8 o'clock, you gotta cut it off.
Your next meeting will be September 26th, I believe,
September 26th?
Tuesday, the 26th. There are some plans that you need to come see in the office. I'll discuss them with you. You will be seeing a remand of the Sandland subdivision. There's some other.
Where's Sam, I remember the
That
name.
was the one, that's on Cedar and Cypress.
Oh, yes, now I remember. Okay, sorry.
So you'll be rehearing that.
Rehearing.
There's a agreed voluntary remand. Parties have negotiated apparently a new plan. You are wholly within your rights to review it and accept or not accept it, but there's a voluntary remand back from the land court. You'll see that in a couple of weeks. So swing by and I'll explain it.
Okay.
All the gory details.
This is a subdivision plan in Mara Vista that we've done. and it's been remanded back to court, we need to go individually, talk to Brian and get updated on it. So you'll be prepared for the meeting.
I think the four of us were here,
Yeah.
but
Right, that's what,
Yeah.
you all weren't.
so all the newer people this is all new to you, so you gotta go get caught up. Then you'll know what we're talking about.
Charlotte, that's our next visit.
Right. We'll be there.
Very good.
John, you need to go too, right? You weren't on the board then either.
I was.
You were?
You
Okay.
were?
All right.
You don't have to go.
I'll go
Well,
anyway.
that completes everything I have on the agenda. That means somebody's supposed to,
I move adjournment.
Second,
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Thank you very much.
thank you.